Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Newark Municipal Council's pre-meeting. Madam President, I believe we have some appointments on the agenda. I'd like to start off with the interviews for the appointments on today's agenda. Is Vincent Rouse in the chamber?
Not appearing, Mr. Clerk.
Alif Muhammad? Would you come to the microphone, please?
Good morning.
Mr. Muhammad, would you please state your name and address for the record?
Alif Muhammad, 1 Court Street, Newark, New Jersey.
Mr. Muhammad, you have been nominated by the mayor for an appointment to the Newark Housing Authority. Do you have a statement that you wish to make to the council before they begin their questions?
Well, I just want to say good morning to the council people, and also my classmate over there in 1972, Ron, Weequay High School. Well, anyway, I just want to say I'm honored. I never thought about anything public. I figured that me educating kids and sending them off to college was enough to do for the community. But somehow somebody talked me into doing something public and serving. I'm a kid that came from the projects. I went from the little bricks to living in Mendham in a 7-bedroom house, legally. I'm raised, born, Newark, educated, love Newark. I just love how things are getting so much better now. It reminds me of the Newark of my childhood in the 50s and the 60s, where we had middle-class people. It was more of a middle-class town. And I'm just excited about anything I could do to help. Like I said, I'm own the school, owned it for 25 years. Did a little building, luxury homes back in the day in Mendham Township in Boca Raton, Florida. 5 kids, 14 grandkids. 3 of them just graduated from college, and 4 great-grandkids. That's it.
I'd like to sponsor Mr. Muhammad.
Do I have a second?
Thank you. Welcome.
Brenda Wilson?
Hearing.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning, Ms. Wilson. Would you just state your name and address for the record?
It's Brenda Wilson, 188 Smith Street, Newark, New Jersey.
Ms. Wilson, you have been nominated by the mayor for an appointment to the Rent Control Board. Do you have a statement that you wish to make to the council before they begin their questions?
Well, I thank you for the opportunity, and I'm looking forward to the challenge.
I'm sorry. Do you have a statement you'd like to make? Oh, she did. Any comments or questions?
Just want to ask Ms. Wilson, you are representing owners or landlords.
Yes.
You are a
Yes, I've been a homeowner for 30 years.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
Before we go on, I'd like to go back and call Vincent Rouse again.
I do not believe he's in the room.
I haven't seen him.
Let's go to the agenda. Are there any questions by the council of the reports of the boards and commissions?
Any comments?
Ordinance is on first reading. 6FA is the special events ordinance. There are some changes.
Any comments?
There are some changes that need to be addressed at this, but we have not received them at this point. So I'm going
What
to.
item are you? I can understand.
This is the special events, 6FA, the special events legislation.
Yeah, Madam President.
Yes, Councilman.
I did get an email from Councilman Amador, I believe he's on vacation, and he expressed some concerns regarding some of the recommendations that he made pertaining to this ordinance that they haven't yet been incorporated, so he had asked for us to defer in his absence.
Any other comments?
6FB is an ordinance which would provide for the vacation of the in Passaic Place.
Any comments? 6F? B.
6FC is the publishing of the executive orders. I'd ask the council to defer action at this time. There are some adjustments that we need to make after a discussion with the administration that will make this more palatable to the council.
Yeah, Madam President.
Yes, Councilman Ramos.
I apologize, I was absent at the last meeting when this came up, and I just wanted to put on the record that I do have some concerns regarding restricting the public's ability to be aware of business that's conducted on behalf of the city. And, you know, I understand the clerk's office has some concerns related to the costs of actually advertising and publicizing the executive orders, but I do believe that we should consider utilizing perhaps the city's website as a cost-effective way of at least advertising and publicizing the executive orders so that there is continued transparency in how the city's conducting its business. And it would be more cost-effective if the concern is the fact that we are spending a lot of money having to advertise this in multiple newspapers.
I too,
Let me follow up on that. The city can create a web page, let's say a Facebook web page, and advertise on Facebook. Everybody seems to follow Facebook. That would be an alternative to not publicizing it at all. I believe that we should, as I mentioned before, err on the side of being open to the public instead of restricting the ability of the public to read what we do.
also, Mr. Clerk, I received an email that I assume, not certain, but fairly certain, that was circulated about my comments. To the person who sent this particular email out, I invite him to, and anyone else, to review the tape of that meeting, the words that he submitted for public disclosure. I did not say what he said. I just want to make it clear to the public that those were not my words, those were his words. Mr. B.A.?
Yes, Council President, good morning. Eric Pennington, Business Administrator for the City of Newark. With respect to the legislation as to how executive orders are dealt with, at our last session, Councilman Gonzalez, who just restated it, had concerns about the transparency of legislation, executive orders, and others going through, and it was not clear at that time that that was not the administration's request, that the request to change the executive order process came from the council, presumably, I'm sorry, Councilman?
From the clerk.
Well,
Yes,
came from-
make it clear.
from the clerk on behalf of the council, or I'm not exactly
Thank you,
sure of the
Councilman
internal
Ramos.
protocol.
Thank you.
But we agree, the administration agrees with Councilman Gonzalez that the information should be as transparent as possible. There is no attempt on the administration's part to hide information from the public, and I don't think it was clear at the last session that there wasn't a request from the administration to do so.
I had a conversation
Yeah, go
with the
ahead.
mayor, and the mayor indicated that to me. It was surprising to me that the mayor, someone that is pro-openness, would inquire or would require us not to publish those. And he said to me that didn't come from us, it came from the clerk's office. So I believe that we have to make sure that we consult with the, let's say, with the council before something like that happens, because we are now being accused or being blame for something that we never intended to do.
Well, my intention is not to blame anyone. The intention here is just to correct the record with respect to an implication or an impression that the administration sought to keep that information private. That is not the case. That's all I intend to state here.
Councilwoman Callum.
I just was curious. I want to know where it came from.
Councilman,
President, I'll move to table that legislation.
Table it anyway, but I just was curious how.
can we present our side of the issue before we move on? Council members,
That
this
should
is,
have
this
been
is,
presented to us
this is,
before that legislation was put into the system.
council members, first of all, this is not a state requirement. Publishing executive's orders is not a state law requirement. It is a local law. The problem that our office is having with this legislation is we're required in 5 days after we receive the executive order to publish it. That means that given the way the newspaper advertising works, we have 2 days to get it prepared in order to get it to the newspaper, because they will not accept it as a PDF. They want it in a specific format. They wanted it by a specific time, and it was just becoming too much for us to keep up with. In a discussion with the administration, we have decided that we're changing the legislation to read to advertise on the website and/or the newspaper. That will give us, we can put it on the website almost immediately without going through all of the changes that the newspapers require, so that we have met our 5-day requirement, and then we can go back, take our time in getting it prepared to get it into, actually advertise it in the newspaper.
Madam President, if I may.
Yes, Councilman.
I just want to get a count of how many executive orders have the mayor signed this year, because I don't think that there are that many that would justify not publishing them.
I can, Madam
I do-
President.
I do believe,
The executive orders, they cover a lot of things. When somebody goes on a leave of absence, there's an executive order. If there's a title change, there's an executive order, salary increase. So, they can be large in numbers. I think we all agree that we do not want to shut the public out of that process of seeing our executive orders.
That's
And
absolutely
I'm good with the idea of publicizing it on the city's website, which is a recommendation I made at the beginning of the meeting. So I think we should give the clerk an opportunity to amend the ordinance that's on the agenda and come back at a future meeting with a new recommendation on how this is going to work.
there has been a recommendation that we table this, as opposed to amending. And
Come back with a new ordinance, whatever.
so when on tomorrow, when we take our vote, let it reflect.
I don't object to deferring it to be amended, as long as we are not, let's say, precluding it from being published. My concern was that it wouldn't be published. I believe that if we're going to publish it in the webpage, that would satisfy me.
Sure. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
D is the adoption of the Fifth Amendment to the Newark Living Downtown Redevelopment Plan to correct certain errors identified in the Third Amendment to the Newark Living Downtown Redevelopment Plan by removing certain properties.
A sponsor by Councilwoman McIver. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilman Osborne.
Ordinance on public hearing, second reading and final passage, 6 PSNFA is an amendment to the rent control ordinance, which would, this is the amendment to the to the inspection ordinance requiring any units that, for a rental unit, utilizing any form of rental assistance or rental subsidy by the sponsoring agency before certification of the code. This requires an inspection before the certification.
Comments?
Madam President,
Councilwoman, I'm sorry. I'm looking at Councilwoman. Councilman Gonzalez, yes.
yes, I was reading, I don't know if we're referring to the same one here. This one is amending the revised ordinance of the City of Newark, New Jersey, as amended and supplemented by adding a new chapter 14. Is that the one that we're talking?
Yes, that is what you have in your package, we're going to amend this on the floor to the document that you have in your package.
Yeah, two things. I believe that the $250 might be a little bit too onerous, especially the renewal fee. The first time that you apply, $250 seems to be reasonable, but every year you have to pay $250 to renew your license to operate, let's say, the short rental property.
I think this is the wrong one. You're talking about the...
Would you state your name and position for the record?
I apologize. Good morning, everyone. Kenyatta Stewart, City of Newark Corporation Council. Councilman, you're talking about the wrong ordinance. It's the next ordinance.
This one here, that's why I asked.
Yeah, it's the wrong ordinance.
Okay. Then my comments go to the second one then.
Yes.
I believe that we are taxing let's say, the citizens of the City of Newark to the point that people might not be able to sustain living in Newark, because every time that we look around, there's a new tax or a new fee or an increased fee. I believe that we have to eventually come to a conclusion that we're taxing people too much.
Madam President, could I?
Councilman Ramos.
I think that, having inspections of vacant apartments is an important, task on behalf of the city to ensure that there's health and safety practices in place. There are other agencies that inspect vacant apartments, such as when the subsidies for Section 8 and temporary rental assistance. I'm glad to see that, my recommendation about adding a period of time when the city has to conduct the inspection was included. And my assumption is that if the inspection is not done within the 10 days after receipt of the application, then the property owner has the right to rent his or her unit. I've talked to different landlords around the state and the county who deal in municipalities where there are inspections, and some municipalities are very effective and efficient in conducting inspections, and other municipalities take a long time to do these kinds of inspections. And what has resulted in some of those towns is that some property owners are able to file tax appeals against the city because now they are carrying vacancies for extended periods of time, and as a result, the value of their properties diminishes, and they've been successful in winning tax appeal cases against some of these towns. So I believe that some of these protections, where it puts the onus of responsibility on us to do the inspection within a period of time, should better protect the city. And the last point I want to make, which is a point I've made consistently since this was introduced, again, a good piece of legislation, but it has to be backed up with the personnel needed to conduct inspections. And we deal with code enforcement as it is right now, and it takes a long time to get inspections done. It takes a long time to get feedback as to what happened as a result of those inspections. And now you are adding an incredible amount of responsibility and additional work on a unit that's already overtasked. So, adding 4 or 5 people, I don't think is going to get you to the point where you can conduct inspections on vacant apartments all over the city of Newark.
Sure.
So that's a message to the BA, and I see our assistant BA COO here, that we're going to need a lot of help in that division in order for them to take on this responsibility.
Councilman, on page 3 of the ordinance, I'm not sure if yours is highlighted or not in red, that speaks to if the...
Inspection of the rental unit must be conducted within 10 days.
In 10 days. If it's not done within 10 days, we give them a temporary certification.
Is that clarified in here anywhere? Because I looked for it and
It's here. It's actually the second big paragraph, essentially. It starts off with, it's number 4. If the rental is not inspected by, within 10 days.
The next section says violations of this kind described in subsection C2. I mean, this is what's on Register. I don't know if there's another version floating around.
In your folder?
No, I'm looking at this.
It wasn't in the folders.
We don't have a folder.
Wasn't in the folders. We only
I'm
have an
looking at
agenda.
what's on Registar, so, yeah. So just a quick question, though, because, Ken, this has been amended, again, this is going to now hit the agenda one last time, correct? Because it hasn't been publicized for second reading. Okay. So maybe, get us a copy of the last version that the Corp Council authorized so that we have an opportunity to see it prior to tomorrow's meeting. But,
Thank you. And in reference to Councilman Gonzalez's question about the next item, it's the short-term rental. Essentially, we decided on the number of $250, which is less than other municipalities. We thought it was a good idea to make sure that we, start off at a lower amount. Most people are at $300, $400 to do the inspection, to do the application and to continue to renew it. We decided to go at $250.
Madam President,
Yes.
now that we're talking
Then-
about the short-term, can you give us, like, the latest? This has been on the agenda for quite some time. Are you still focusing on owner-occupied, maximum number of days that someone can rent their unit? What's the latest? Like, what are the regulatory recommendations that the city has? And the other thing I just want to put out there is that we've been dealing, and the BA, myself, Phil Scott, and Director Ambrose, with a situation that we weren't even aware of that's happening, I know in the North Ward and probably throughout the city, where there are other short-term rental services that are being pushed. And then one of the problems we had some weeks back was that we have property owners that have pools, and there's a site where they're able to rent those swimming pools on an hourly basis, and they were conducting these pretty extravagant parties, advertising the sale of alcohol, hookah, and they just became kind of like de facto dance halls in residential neighborhoods. So I was thinking, is there an opportunity to kind of not attack, but regulate those short-term rental opportunities as part of what you're doing here?
So,
Before you respond, Councilman James, and I do apologize, asked to speak.
Just real quick, I just want to piggyback on what Councilman Ramos said earlier about having the inspections done on time. If we hire those personnel, 250 will not be enough to even cover that. We got to realize these are profit. They're going to make a profit every day, every month that they're renting. So this is not going to affect regular tenants. This is individuals who are making rent above and beyond specifically for short-term rentals.
So to answer your question, the plan here is now for us to give people an opportunity to rent their homes out. We have amended it so that now individuals can rent their multiple rooms in the house or what have you. Before there was a limitation on that. We do have a owner-occupied requirement still here. If the council wants to amend it, so be it. But I think the owner-occupied issue does address what you are having an issue with now, with people just renting out their homes, not there, and of course, whatever happens, happens. It's my opinion, and it's the administration's opinion, that through research, when people live in the unit, they have a better appreciation for what's happening in their unit. Unfortunately, if I'm not here to see that folk are making noise, that folk are, having too much of a good time, bothering the neighbors and things of that nature, it's very hard to handle that when someone is away. Now, don't get me wrong, I do recognize that Airbnb has a, complaint hotline and things of that nature, but the owner should be there to make sure that he or she is regulating it. And we recognize that some people just has, a super, or they may have a wife or a spouse or something like that, that's also, eligible to be there. But we think that that's going to be a big part of making sure that the neighbors in the neighborhood, the folk in the neighborhood, still can enjoy a quality of life. Unfortunately, sometimes we have a good time, and a lot of Airbnbs are, used for vacationing and things of that nature. Some people use it for parties, some people use it for the Super Bowl and things of that nature, and it's just, a part of the culture. The fortunate part about it is people can still make money to do what they have to do here to support the income, to pay their mortgage, to pay their taxes and things of that nature. I believe you all were asking about, so it's owner occupied essentially. We took out the requirement so that the neighbors have to sign off. We took that out.
What about the historic districts? There's still a...
So we do also have a ban on the historic districts.
Yeah, because I've received correspondence from my Forest Hill Community Association, and they're not in favor of banning the Airbnb. They do support regulating it. So I understand, I totally respect, council president and the folks at the Week Wake, section who want to ban it, but I do believe we have to be respectful of the fact that we have other historic districts. Could I go back to the owner-occupied, Kenyatta?
Sure.
I have a issue with that because I've utilized Airbnb when I've traveled.
Sure.
And I would rent an Airbnb where someone may own a condominium apartment somewhere. It's a small unit.
Sure.
I don't feel comfortable staying in a unit, 2 or 3 bedroom unit where the owner actually lives there. The idea behind most people that utilize Airbnb is that they're traveling into areas, they're renting an apartment that the owner doesn't necessarily live in.
So when we say owner occupied, we're not saying that the owner has to be there on that day. What we're saying is the owner has to live there. So essentially, there's times where I've been in an Airbnb, and of course, the owner is right next door in a closed out room. There are other times where the owner has been gone for the weekend, and he or she may rent.
But what if a person owns a condominium and they don't live there necessarily, and they're allowed in their complex to rent it out as an Airbnb a certain number of days out of the month?
Well, again, as far as the administration is concerned, we're against that idea. If the council wants to amend it, if you see fit, we understand. That's,
What's the maximum number of days you have per month?
28 days straight. I believe it's 28 days straight.
28 consecutive days.
Yes.
My next question is where do we get the 28 days?
Again, just from our research and the history, normally you don't want someone to be able to rent an Airbnb the entire month because essentially they're renting they're a regular tenant, for lack of better words. So if I can rent an Airbnb for 2 or 3 months straight, for lack of better words, what happens is that person becomes a de facto tenant, and it would take off the opportunity for other people, Norkers, to rent this unit because, of course, if I can make the money through Airbnb, why would I spend time renting?
Right, I believe, let's say, the contract between the owner and the guest controls that because the rent is per day. You're not charging a rent per month, you're charging a rent per day. And in some companies prefer to have, let's say I have a company from Switzerland that is sending someone here, and I want that individual to be in my house for 3 months. So I agree with you to pay you per day. The person lives 28 days or 15 days later, he pays for the 15 days that he occupies. But there's no limitation in terms of staying in the property for more than the 28 days. I believe that the 28 days is arbitrary. Where do we get it?
Well, again, the idea is this. I'm just doing simple multiplication. If I charge you $100 a day to stay at my place, and we do, let's call it 30 days, that there is more rent than a person would probably get for that same unit if I rented it to a person who would then live there on a permanent basis. There's no incentive for me to rent my unit to someone on a permanent basis to live there, to be a part of the community, to be, have their kids in the community and raise a family and things of that nature. Meanwhile, the neighbors, sometimes it becomes a situation where neighbors have to deal with new people in the house on a regular basis. And what we don't want to do is we don't want to turn these, and I use the word de facto hotels, into long-stay hotels, because what would happen is it would take away from the residential community unit.
But you are in fact promoting, let's say, more tenants because you are limiting
Thank you.
the tenancy to 28 days. So if you, let's say, if I had the opportunity of renting for 3 months, I don't have that opportunity because I have to move after 28 days, 28 consecutive days. So you are increasing the number of people that are going to or might be able to rent that unit.
Madam President, could I make a quick
Yes.
point? I think the focus on the owner-occupied, I can envision now where you're creating opportunities for people to convert like single-family homes into boarding homes, right? So you have a single-family home, owner lives there, he or she has 7 bedrooms. What prevents that person from now, creating 7 Airbnb opportunities in a single-family home? So, that kind of like, to me, that's worse than having a property owner who owns a townhouse or condominium renting that apartment for a limited number of days per month through Airbnb.
Well, the difference is if we let a person stay at the location for more than 30 days, we essentially undermine the rent control.
That's true.
The idea.
I'm not arguing the limit on days. I'm talking about how you allow a single-family home where the owner may live there, and all of a sudden, they're creating a boarding home or a rooming house because they've got, 7 rooms in the house that they're renting through Airbnb.
Right, but again, it's short term. The key to the whole thing is it's short term. It's not a boarding house or a rooming house until he or she is allowed to let the people stay there on an unlimited basis.
I think you're fixing one problem, and you're creating 10 other problems by some of these regulatory practices, so.
That may be, but we are going to have to eventually resolve this. I want to make a couple of comments. Within the ordinance, the term is, and this is for those who are watching, those who are in the chambers this morning, it says short-term rental. And we have to understand that the language is very specific. It is no secret that I have continually opposed the concept of B&B. Unfortunately, in my neighborhood, the issues that you've heard me recant over and over again, we probably got the one bad apple in the barrel. In fact, one of the tenants committed an offense, was about to commit an offense today as I was coming. But I had a wonderful conversation after the last meeting, and I'm looking into the audience to see whether or not this couple is here today. And I don't see them, but I do want to thank them because we had a conversation, and it gave me a perspective from owner-occupied Airbnb. I was opposed to any kind, but they shared with me the requirements that they have for the people who come. They said they've never had any difficulty from their neighbors. And so with that in mind, I think all of us, as we make a decision, we're going to have to find a compromise. And so just for the record, the concept of owner-occupied seems to work. I'd love to hear from others as to how they feel about the owner-occupied as opposed to an investment, where people buy the property and move other people in.
Madam President, I just want
Yes.
unrelated to that, I discussed with the Corporation Council that on paragraph E of section 18,
What page is it, Councilman?
Actually, I don't have page numbers. I can count the pages. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Page 6, actually, 7, I believe it is. 7.
Which one?
Paragraph E. The second line on that refers to who intends to rent all of the property, and I believe that's contrary to the intent that we have here, that is to rent a portion of the property. So I believe that language should be eliminated from that paragraph.
Yeah, that can be amended on the floor.
Could, Madam President, Kenyatta, can you look at the possibility of us eliminating the ability of like a single-family home for the property owner, if it is owner-occupied, to utilize a short-term rental as an opportunity to rent out rooms? Could that be restricted as part of our, regulatory issues with Airbnb? I have no issue with an apartment being rented that's, legally recognized by the city, but I do have concerns about people renting out rooms and utilizing Airbnb as a conduit, even if it's for 28 days out of the month. That's 95% of the month where you're allowed by law to rent out your house as a rooming house. And rooming homes and boarding homes are temporary. They're not permanent residents. So this is a loophole that I think the city's going to regret creating. If it's an apartment, I have no issue. If it's a condominium that a person owns and the condo association is okay with them renting out that apartment as part of the short-term rental, I have no issue. But I do have concerns about people utilizing this as a loophole to create boarding homes and rooming houses. And then the other thing I would like to see is language in here that would ban people from renting out sections of their homes, like the issue we faced a few weeks ago with the pools, almost as a dance hall, where they have flyers out on these sites where they're promoting the sale of alcohol. Those are definite issues and problems that I think you have an opportunity in this ordinance to hopefully address. There should be more than just Airbnb. There are other short-term rental conduits that are creating some issues in the community.
So, while we talk about, Airbnb, this is in reference to short-term rental, so that will cover any short-term rental. I mean, Airbnb is the more popular,
No, I understand.
company.
But there are other rentals that go beyond someone staying and sleeping in a particular apartment. These are rentals that people may utilize for a few hours on a Sunday, renting out your pool, but at the same time, organizing a dance hall kind of function where they're promoting on social media. And the other day, we had 180 people show up at one of these parties. And we were getting complaints from neighbors about people urinating on their lawns. It creates a lot of stress in these residential communities. But the rooming house piece, I think, is going to be a big problem for us.
So, Mr. Clerk Counsel, I'm going to ask at the meeting tomorrow that our colleagues be prepared to vote. We have to arrive at some decision, and we'll see what happens.
Where is this, Mr. Clerk? Is this now a new ordinance that's being introduced? Is this on second reading and then there'll be final passage?
These items are on second reading. We will be amending 6 PNSNFC. That's the amendment that you should have. That will require that this be re-advertised and brought to the council at the next council meeting. The other items would move forward, and we'd send them to the mayor for signature.
And I would just say, Madam President, that we just
Yes.
got this literally because we asked for it at this meeting, but this is a replacement of the ordinance that's been on the agenda and deferred, a whole bunch of times. So the changes, which are pretty substantial, that were made, this body just received today. So I would respectfully ask for some opportunity to review this And then the last thing I want to mention is the restriction in the historic district. Again, my property owners through the Forest Hill Community Association have expressed some concerns regarding banning Airbnb in their community. But they do support the regulatory, approach that the city's taking. So I just want to put that on the record. So any restriction or banning, I want to make sure it doesn't affect them.
So, Councilman, what kind of regulations are they looking for?
Well, the stuff that the city's looking to propose, maximum number of days, mandatory.
That I know, yes.
Registration with the city, inspections, They do also have concerns about the possibility of people converting, single-family homes into rooming houses. So we have to figure out a way to address that.
So are you saying that the idea, which would be to amend the ordinance so that people in single-family homes cannot do Airbnb, or is it, I guess I'm just confused about the idea.
Maybe a maximum number of rooms that they can rent out through the Airbnb process. I'm not sure how other towns have addressed this, but, I don't see how someone that has, 11-bedroom house wouldn't try to utilize this as an opportunity to rent out, 10 bedrooms in their home. So, it's an unintended consequence, but it could happen, you know what I'm saying?
So you're saying like 3 bedrooms to,
I'm not the expert here.
okay.
All right.
Councilman James, final comment, and then we'll move on.
Okay, and I think we need to consult with engineering or housing because, we have certain codes and standards that, if you have a basement, you have to have 2 ways out. You have a 3rd floor apartment, you have to have 2 ways out. Now, to what Councilman Ramos is stating, if they're just now putting bedrooms and living rooms and porches and everything else, they might not have that same egress to be able to get out for hazard or fire or safety. We need to keep that in mind. I think that's the overriding thought, that we don't want individuals just, utilizing every room in their house or shed or whatever, just to try to make money off of this. Sure. And if we do make it a law or ordinance, now they can look to this ordinance for protection, say, hey, you didn't limit what type of room, what size of room, and it could lead to hazards.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk?
Very quickly, 6 PSNFB would change the code to permit short-term rental units. C would establish a new title, short-term rental units, which we will be amending on the floor. D would adding transient accommodations to the list of properties subject to the license fees assessment, and amends Section A to authorize the inclusion of transient accommodations as they become identified. And E is the rental hotel occupancy tax. These are all the Airbnb-related items.
Madam President, just,
Yes.
I'm sorry, one last, is the Tourism Bureau now going to get a portion of whatever the tax is for Airbnb? Is that what we're proving here?
I do believe,
So, for the record, Kenyatta Stewart, City of Newark Corporation Council. So it's 2 different things. 6PSFD is in reference to the tourism. They get 1.5% of it, like any other hotel situation.
You just finished telling us that this is not interpreted by the city as a hotel kind of function.
It's actually the opposite. What I was saying was, we did not want people to live there, to stay there for longer than 28 days, because we wanted to make sure it maintained to be a hotel, as opposed to being a de facto living situation. 6PSFE is in reference to the 6% tax that the city will get.
And so how much does the Tourism Bureau get?
They get 1.5%.
For what purpose? Are they going to promote Newark as an Airbnb destination, or?
Well, it's no different from any other hotel, right? And that's what the idea of Airbnb is, that it's It's the equivalent of a hotel that any person can have in their house, right? The idea is that I don't have to stay at the Marriott or what have you. I can stay in the comfort of someone else's home, spend some time there, have the amenities that I would have in my own house. So if my kids need to, I need to cook for my kids and things of that nature, I can do that in someone else's house, and of course, appreciate some of the neighborhood.
I understand all that. I'm just trying to figure out why are they getting 1.5% that the city could keep? And what role are they going to play in this process in order for them to get that additional revenue? Like, what are they going to do for this, for the city as far as short-term rentals in order for them to be authorized to collect this 1.5%?
But again, remember that the city has authorized the tourism folk to get a percentage of hotel funding. Authorized it. We've allowed it to
They're a
happen.
special improvement district.
This is a part of their
Their
district.
responsibility is defined by boundaries, geographic mostly, right? Not necessarily every single, short-term rental all over the city. I don't know if they're authorized to collect on that as well.
Right, but again, Natasha Rogers actually gave me an opportunity to reflect. It's actually only in their district.
The what?
It's in their district only.
Okay, so it's only Airbnb rentals within their
Within their
geographic
district.
district? Okay,
Yes.
that makes sense, and thank you, Ms. Rogers, for clarifying.
Make a comment. It's not related to that. I just want to warn let's say the homeowners that finance their houses through HUD, that HUD prohibits renting the properties for transient occupancy. So if you have a HUD finance home and you do a Airbnb and rent the house, rental rooms in the house, you might be called on to refinance that property because you'll be in violation of the mortgage documents. So it's very important for someone that has financed the house through HUD or HUD guaranteed a mortgage to make sure that they can do that.
Thank you for that very important information. Mr. Clerk, back to the agenda.
F would amend the Commission on the Status of Women by adding a provision for the appointment of 4 advisors. G would add a new section, Chapter 36, entitled Use of Plastic Bags Prohibited.
Council President.
Councilwoman McIver.
So I'm going to respectfully ask that we defer this item. Myself, along with Councilman James and Councilman Gonzalez, we had a great meeting with one of the business owners here in the city, and we want to pursue possibly holding some meetings with small businesses in our community, as well as some meetings with the Environmental Commission, as well as the community. I spoke to corporate counsel in regards to this, and I just think we need to do a little bit more informing and getting the information from our community before we enforce this and move forward with it. There may be some amendments, there may be some things we need to add. We had a great meeting, we talked about a lot of things, and I think that we just have a lot more work to do before we move forward with this. So I'm going to ask that we defer this until we can all get together as a full council to talk about it even more and move forward with the small business meetings with the administration.
I'll second the deferral.
Yes.
If I may, council members, can I recommend that rather than deferring action at this time, that we table this document? This would take it off the agenda and remove any pressure on the council to actually get something done. It would give you more time to work with, to have the meetings that you're talking about, make the adjustments, and then we could bring it back off the table in the new form, as opposed to deferring every
agreement?
council meeting.
The councilwoman.
Yep.
I mean, we got stuff on here we deferred like 80 times, so I'm trying to understand like what's the difference between this item.
We're trying to avoid that.
Instead of tabling it, I just don't want to, table, and I would assume we're going to kind of pursue this and move forward rather quickly. So if we could just give it to at least next meeting, see where we kind of get between that before I ask for it to be tabled.
Okay, defer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moved to the table, yes.
Also,
Councilman Quintana.
Clerk,
if we can look at the National League of Cities position on other cities around the country, there are some models around the country. So before we jump to approve this or go against or whatever we're going to do, we need to look at what other cities around the country are doing of the same size as Newark. I know Puerto Rico has gone through that, but it has been a long, extensive process, not immediately. It has been a process, whether it was with the bags, whether it was with the straws. It has been an educational process. So we need to look at what other cities around, and if we go into the website, and the administration could go into the website of the National League of Cities and look at other cities and models around the country, what their practices are, before we jump and say we want to be like New York or we want to be like Jersey City. That's a different. New York has its own issues, and Jersey City too. I just don't want to be put at the same level as no New York or no Jersey City.
Madam President.
Madam
As
President.
Councilman Gonzalez, followed by Councilman Ramos.
I believe that, let's say, the bags and the other items I had mentioned create a problem, but I believe that we should legislate at the state level and not create let's say, a patchwork of legislation that every town has a different piece of legislation. I believe that it's incumbent upon the state legislators to do something for the environment at the state level, because we can do something here in Newark, and then, as I mentioned before, some people go to Hillside and shop in Hillside, and they bring the bags to Newark. They go to Bloomfield. They go to Belleville. They go all around Newark. They go to Irvington, and they bring the bags back to Newark. And there's no use on us controlling what happens in Newark, because we will be penalizing the merchants in the city of Newark. I believe the state does something should be better for everybody.
Thank you. Any other
Madam
comments?
Yeah, I was going to mention that I believe there is legislation that the state will adopt shortly that's going to regulate the use of plastic bags. You know, I agree with the councilwoman's position to defer. There were a number of good suggestions that came out of the city's environmental commission. They produced a pretty comprehensive assessment, and you know, I just don't understand how something like this pops up on the agenda and that board wasn't necessarily consulted with, or their input wasn't solicited. But I've always believed that rather than just a straight out ban, that we should also consider having the possibility of a tax, which has worked very effectively in some communities. So you would have the option of having consumers pay a fee in order to utilize a plastic bag at a local supermarket. And I think that reduces a lot of the pressure that's going to be created on small businesses in our city as well. And that came out of their commission report, actually. That was one of their suggestions. So, but I believe the state's going to trump all of us here because they're going to have legislation adopted very soon. So.
Next item, Mr. Clerk.
H is the security guard ordinance. Councilwoman?
Sponsor.
Second.
Next item.
I is an ordinance granting a 30-year tax abatement to the Jollof Senior Estates Urban Renewal LLC. This is to construct a new building consisting of 50 senior affordable housing units located at 220-224, 226-230 Jollof Avenue.
Like to sponsor.
Second.
Yeah, that's true.
J is an ordinance amending 6 PS and FG adopted on January 9th, 2019, the tax abatement granted to the Duke Realty Newark Urban Renewal.
I'll sponsor it.
Councilman Gonzalez will sponsor. Councilman Osborne will second.
K is an ordinance to amend the solid management chapter 6. This would supplement
The fees.
This would require the owners to maintain premises free of litter and
Yeah, this increases the fines. So it's from-
Sponsor.
Second.
Just an addendum, a quick comment that, and I had a chat with the director, and just make it significant enough so that the owners will get the message. That's my only comment.
Council
$100 doesn't mean a thing.
Council President, I just want to say, this ordinance, I know the clerk was like kind of getting through the language, but basically it is a amendment to the current ordinance to increase the fines for illegal dumping. I do want to bring up another point that we kind of brought up already multiple times here. I know Councilman Ramos has brought it up regarding most of the times people are going to court, violators who are going to court and getting their, getting stuff thrown out, getting the tickets thrown out, and that seems to be still an ongoing case, an ongoing situation. And as a city, like, we cannot keep cleaning up after people finding them and not getting any money back from people. So we can increase, we can do this, code can go out, write tickets, do all of that, and then when they get to court to keep having it thrown out, it's a waste of all of our time. And so I've asked before regarding, I know Councilman Ramos had hosted a public safety committee meeting where we kind of invited the chief judge, invited corporate counsel to talk about what is it that we can do as a city. Rather, is it something that we're doing wrong administratively? Are we not writing tickets properly? What is it that we're doing that when people go to court who constantly violate our city with trash, that they leave there with no fine, no ticket, no court costs, they just like, adios, thanks a lot, and then they're dumping the next day? We need to talk about that and kind of rectify that situation, because all of this is our waste of our time when people, when the Department of Public Works have to continue to go out to clean up after these people arrested, they're fined, and we continue to get the same old outcome. And so it's very disappointing. I just had a meeting the other day with the 3rd precinct. It's the same thing with police, with public safety. They literally ticket people for doing certain things. They go to court, thrown out. Like, literally, like the police, like with actually, like, you know, concrete evidence and information, and still none of these tickets are sticking. Most of these people are not even from our town. They go and they just get their tickets thrown out. That's like disrespectful to all of the departments, everybody involved, and it really needs to stop. We need to try to come to some kind of, you know, maybe a training or whatever to try to train people on what they should be doing or what's not, you know, helping with the courts, that tickets don't stick. Because the joke is, I'm going to court, and it's going to get thrown out and whatever. Like, everybody's laughing at that. And we look laughable. We have to fix that.
Madam President.
Ms. Rogers, I'm sorry, Councilman Ramos.
Yeah, I'm glad Councilwoman brought that issue. We did have actually 2 meetings. The first meeting Councilwoman was at, we didn't have anyone show up from the courts. But the second meeting, we had Judge Adamas there, Public Safety Director Ambrose, Chief Henry. And, you know, there are a number of issues that impact, you know, the court's ability to take action. And one of the big problems that they had is that the summonses in many instances were being filled out incorrectly. So when they went to court, you know, the judge has no other recourse but to dismiss, you know, some of these violations because there was a technical flaw in the filling out of the violations. And that was something that, you know, they were going to work on correcting. There is some recommendations that were going to come from the court. And we talked as recently as last week to try to strengthen, you know, some of the consequences associated with illegal dumping, which will require us to change some legislation. But I would ask through your chair, Madam Clerk, Madam President, and Mr. Clerk, that if we could have a follow-up, invite Judge Adamas back, Public Safety Director Ambrose, and Chief Henry to see what progress, you know, they've made. That Director Scott was also at that meeting to ensure that these summonses are at minimum being filled out correctly so that the courts have the information that they need to take action. But I do agree that it's disheartening that, you know, Public Safety Department identifies someone, you know, conducting illegal dumping in our city, and then they end up in court and, you know, it's either a slap on the wrist or the case gets dismissed. So the fine increases here are pretty substantial, and I think it sends the right message, but we just have to make sure that it does translate into some kind of consequence when they get to court.
Thank you. Ms. Rogers.
Good morning, Council. Natasha Rogers, Chief Operating Officer for the city. I just want to put on the record that the administration agrees with the focus, more focused energy should be on ensuring that when tickets are issued, that they are enforced in the court system. As a result, the directors of all departments meet with the mayor on a weekly basis to talk about key performance indicators and where there are deficits. As a result, the court administrator will now start reporting out how many summonses are issued for illegal dumping and then what the results of those are. We're going to further drill down on who is issuing out the summonses and give a renewed training process on how to complete a summons. We want to make sure that our decisions are informed by data. We know that there are comments coming back saying that the summonses are being written out incorrectly. We just want to make sure that that's supported with data in order to effectuate the next direction on how we ensure that when illegal dumpers are caught in summons, that they are, paying the consequence for their illegal actions.
Just another follow-up comment, and I know we're talking about illegal dumping fines, but it's everything. Like literally, property owners are fined for unkept property, all types of stuff, and literally just everything's thrown out. Just last week, I had a meeting with somebody, a resident. One of a property owner that we had fined, and we ended up going cleaning the property because that's what happens. Like DPW, we asked them, go out, clean the slide, do this, do that, and they go out, they clean these places, and literally we charge them like half of the amount it takes for them to clean. Those big lots, getting out there, cleaning up that trash, mowing all of that grass, that work sometimes can be up to $10,000 to $15,000, and we charge pennies compared to the work that goes out there. So that's a whole nother thing that we need to look at regarding the fees that we charge or the liens that we put on, which I don't know what that even really means, but the liens that we put on people's property for a couple of dollars for all of the work that they're doing. But literally the data, whenever you get the data, is definitely going to support everything up here we're saying, because we speak to people every day and their tickets are thrown out, and that is factual information. So I can't wait to see what the data says. I would love for the council to get a copy of it, because I'm telling you, all of these tickets get thrown out or the process is not followed, so it's thrown out. We need like professional development, just like any other organization does, like immediately. Not this. We don't really even have time, because once again, we're continuing to waste the time of everybody, every department, our time, residents' time who are calling, complaining, and nothing's happening to these people. And then residents have to keep calling, and then they think that the city's not doing anything, because then they call one day on Monday, and then the next Monday the same thing's occurring with property owners or whatever. So I'm just saying, it's urgent. I know I sound passionate about it, but we all get a lot of calls about unkept property, lots, and so forth. It is the biggest problem, like in a city, like seriously, behind, public safety. And I think that's before public safety at this point. And so at this point, like, it's urgent for us to train people on what they should be doing, like a PD, like tomorrow. So I'm going to keep being passionate about it, because we keep getting the same calls from residents who are doing their due diligence and reporting people or reporting neighbors or owners who do not keep up their property. And if the city doesn't do anything appropriately to, put these people on warning, then like it's a waste of their time and a waste of hours. So I mean, it's not like a personal thing I'm saying to you, Ms. Rogers. I'm just saying it is urgent for us to do something with the department so people know how to properly write tickets. So when they get to the court, it's a perfect process.
Noted.
Councilman Gonzalez.
See, I'm going to suggest that perhaps we should standardize the tickets, let's say, and the people go there and make a check mark instead of writing all the violations. Let's say, if you know what the major violations are, so you standardize the ticket, and the person going there says, tires, check mark, mattresses, check mark. And instead of a construction material, check mark. Instead of having to write, because in the writing is where they made the mistakes, and then the court doesn't have an option. They say, once you make a mistake, the court is going to dismiss the case.
Yeah, and some of the quality of life summonses that they're issuing, they're still writing tickets for loitering, which is, automatically dismissed in court. So, I agree with the councilman that there should be a simpler process.
So it's actually, where did she go? Oh, there she is. You've heard from the council, it's epidemic. It's out of control. So I don't know if this is doable or possible. But I feel sorry for Councilman James, because when I'm driving down Burton Street, I lose it. I lose it. And I call him, I'm sure all of you, well, he's my councilman, and I feel sorry for him because I call him screaming at the top of my lungs. And the issue is, the other day, I pulled over and I went into the store and I said, the front of your store is filthy. It's a disgrace. And he said to me, well, I didn't put it there. I said, it's in front of your store. You need to keep the area around your store clean. He said, no, I don't. And we need to do something with business owners. I know we have a legendary list. At some point in time, we need to hold them accountable. Even though it's not their fault, it's in front of their property. So I submit that to you as well. Not only, they're not in denial, they just say it's not my fault. Yes, it is. You allow people to hang around in front of your store, drop their bottles and their cans on the ground, and papers and what? Plastic bags. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I submit that to you, Ms. Rogers.
Administration receives it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Next item, Mr. Clerk.
L, M, and N are bond ordinances. We have a request from Finance to defer action at this time until these items have been heard by the local finance board. Resolutions?
Madam President, before we
Yes, Councilman.
there's some people here that spoke to me the other day about street naming and some opposition that was presented to them because the person that the street is being named after is not a resident of, wasn't a resident of the city of Newark. We have had a ton of people, a ton of streets of people that were not residents of the city of Newark, starting with John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy wasn't a resident of the city of Newark. Martin Luther King wasn't a resident of the city of Newark. So I don't understand why we are saying that since that individual was not a resident of the United States or a resident of the city of Newark, the street cannot be named after him. And we're talking about Julio Jaramillo, that is someone that was and is an idol for the Ecuadorian community. This body voted to allow that street to be named, or that corner to be named under his name, and I don't understand why they are getting some pushback indicating that they cannot have it. I just want to make sure that that happens as ordered by this council.
Absolutely.
Who pushed it back?
To the best of my knowledge, birthplace has never been the requirement. It's the accomplishment. And the accomplishment and commitment to the city of Newark. So I don't know where this came from, and maybe we can talk.
Well, for petitioning to us and for asking that that it be done, or that it would have been done during the celebration of the this week's Ecuadorian festival. Apparently, they had postponed it because they were receiving pushback from the city.
Not from the council, because it has to come through my office.
Somebody representing the council.
Madam President, can we discuss this during the executive session?
Absolutely. We'll continue it in executive session. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, two resolutions.
Resolution 7R1A is a temporary emergency appropriation for the transmitted disease program.
Council President,
Yes.
Is it possible if I can get, it says outreach and educational services. Can we get a list of the outreach activities that they did as well as the educational services that were offered for this particular item? This isn't the first time we got this money for this item, correct?
No, it isn't.
Dr.
Okay.
Wade?
So can we get can we get a list of what has occurred in the past with these funds and what is proposed for these funds this time? Just a list of activities and the outreach activities that you guys are doing for this.
Sure. Dr. Mark Wade, Director of the Department of Health and Community Wellness. Noted. We'll have for you for the next meeting.
Perfect, thank you.
B is a temporary emergency appropriation for the bioterrorism preparedness grant.
I'm sorry, what?
C is a temporary emergency appropriation to enhance the city's ability to prevent, protect against, respond to, and recover from acts of terrorism. D is a temporary emergency appropriation to provide funds for the operating expenses for the city of Newark, including the water sewer utilities, until the adoption of the 2019 budget. E is a bid contract to obtain recycle services.
Mr. Clerk, if we could go back, if we could invite the Public Safety Director and his team to come in and share with us some information and insight with what's going on in the United States of America right now is unacceptable, and Newark needs to be as prepared as possible. Fortunately, and I say fortunately from knowledge, that we have more respect for one another's culture and heritage, but you never ever know. And so to the administration, that perhaps through the Newark Assembly program, there could be some forums, discussions on how to avoid these particular issues. Okay, that's it. Seven or 1D.
701D is a temporary emergency appropriation to provide funds for the operating expenses of the city of Newark until the adoption of the budget.
When is that expected to happen?
I'm sorry?
When is the budget expected to be adopted?
Mr. Clerk, I'm sorry, Mr. B.A. Is he in the room? We'll get it, yes.
I think the question was, when is the budget expected to be adopted? I think that's up to you all.
There were some hearings, I suppose, that
Yes.
requested some changes to the budget. So we want to see those changes reflected in the document.
I did not receive any formal requests. I don't know, Mr. Clerk, if something happened, but I didn't get any formal requests about changes to the budget.
Madam President,
Yes,
during the hearing process, there were a lot of observations that were made by the council, and typically what happens is those observations are documented. We have an opportunity to have a sit-down with Mr. Facone, and then that information is transmitted to the administration. So let's make sure that that happens. Okay?
Thank you. Pass the message.
I have requested of the BH, let's say, that he consider assigning some monies to the little leagues, baseball little leagues, soccer little leagues, and basketball little leagues, so that they can pay for, at least for the not coaches, but the referees, that they have to raise a lot of money. $5,000 that we could give to one of these leagues means a ton of, let's say, a ton of participation that the kids are going to have. Now they have to scramble to get money to pay for referees and all that stuff. And I believe that the city should be in a position to help them, let's say, help the kids in the city of Newark.
Yes.
Thank you. Next item, Mr. Clerk. 701E. What's the matter, Mr. Clerk? You're usually ahead of me.
701E is the bid contract to obtain recycling services.
Is this only for tires?
Only for tires.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Yeah, used tires.
701F is a bid contract to maintain and repair Harley-Davidson motorcycles.
I'd sponsor that.
I know you do. Is there a second? Sounded by Councilman Quintana.
Not only because it's motorcycles. Johnny Cycle has bid for this contract for the last 10 years. And we prefer to send the motorcycles to Edison and a lot of other places. When he's located here in the city of Newark, he was disqualified at one point in time because he bid for 1 year and not for the 2 years requested. I believe that we have to try to sponsor the businesses of the city of Newark, and this is a fine example of doing that.
Absolutely. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
7R1G is a bid contract for the maintenance and repair of sewer netting. 1H is a bid contract to purchase hardware, tools, equipment, and supplies for the Departments of Public Safety, Public Works, and Water Sewer Utilities.
Next item.
I is a bid contract to provide shredding services.
Next item.
Councilman Raymond.
J is,
Sheltering.
Can I, let's say, I believe the county has a service that charges much less than this amount that we're.
Yeah, I don't know what the overall scope is. I know we've utilized, I believe it's Hudson Community, which is a sheltered workshop.
Yeah.
But this could be a substantial amount of paper that they're shredding. I don't know how the clerk's office determines who they utilize for this. Yeah, we've utilized Hudson Community for many years.
1I.
if I may, council members, this contract, we use this contract to shred documents for the various departments. That it's a mobile unit. The courts, for example, have the bins for documents that need to be shredded, and the truck will come to Green Street and bring the bins out for shredding. We bring them over to the archives for documents that need to.
That's what the county does.
It has the same.
They come.
Hudson Community does the same thing. So.
And they charge. I have seen the invoices a fraction. $3 for a couple of boxes, $5 for a couple of boxes. So I just want to explore the possibility of consulting with them and get a bid from them.
And they're actually bid exempt because they provide training for the disabled.
Yeah.
Their workforce is made up of, and like the councilman said, there seems like on an individual basis it's a very nominal cost. But this could be a substantial amount of paper that the city's trying to get rid of. So.
Next item, Mr. Clerk.
J is a bid contract to purchase fire hydrant tools and wrenches.
Next item.
K is the use of a state contract to purchase 10 or newer Ford Police Interception Utility Explorers. L is a ratifying authorizing resolution for the Department of Administration for the extension of an emergency contract to provide impoundment and sheltering services.
James? John?
I'm not going to speak to the council as a whole.
I'm sorry. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
M is a authorizing resolution for Smart Policing Initiative for General Services. 7R2A is a private sale and redevelopment. At the request of the administration, we will be returning to administration.
Next item.
2B is declaring an area in need of redevelopment. This is East Ward.
Yeah, Madam President.
Yes.
In the absence of Councilman Amador, because the administration give us a little bit of information as to why you're requesting this area in need of redevelopment.
Is the councilman asking that?
I'm asking
Removal?
as to why why are they requesting this? An explanation. And maybe we'll come back to this item.
Come back.
Yeah.
7R2C is a private sale and redevelopment to rehabilitate the property for owner-occupied housing.
Next item.
2D is a private sale.
Sponsoring C.
See,
I'm sorry.
Sponsoring that.
Sponsor
have a second?
C.
Do I have a second? D is a private sale and redevelopment. This is to develop a four-story, approximately 24 mixed units as apartment building and parking.
Sponsor.
Second.
Two E is a investigation of an area in need of redevelopment. This is Central Ward.
I'd like to request the explanation from the administration regarding this request. No? Okay.
Somebody?
It looks like one Theater Square and the Shaquille O'Neal building.
Yeah, well, I want to know why.
Yeah.
Yeah. It should have been done with it.
Yeah.
Good morning, Council. I will check with the Planning Department as to the reasons as to both of these areas in need of redevelopment.
Thank you so much, Bisola.
For the latter request, this is because of NJPAC's development.
Oh, okay.
On their private land, yes.
Okay, thank you so much. That helps me.
Is
Sponsor.
that what it is? Is there a second? Second by
Second.
Councilman Osborne.
F is a private sale and redevelopment to create a side yard for the adjacent owner-occupied home.
So Madam President, just to clarify, this is an undersized lot that's being conveyed to one of the adjacent property owners? I'd like to,
Oh, I think it,
Keith Hamilton, Senior
Good
Property
idea.
Manager. This particular one is not necessarily an undersized yard. It's a lot that has been utilized as kind of in a de facto type of scenario as a parking, I would say, not lot, but like a, driveway for a number of years, and it's been kind of, it's an irregular lot, but it's not necessarily an undersized lot.
so it's buildable, in your opinion, or?
100
The
square.
way, the way that the lot looks currently does not look like it's a buildable lot. However, the size of it is under our regulations considered a buildable lot.
Is your recommendation that Ms. Garado is probably one of the adjacent property owners who's been taking care of the property over the years?
Yes, they have been taking care of the property for a number of years since they owned the property. It has had some issues in terms of illegal dumping and things like that, overgrown weeds, and they have been procuring it for a very long time.
Thank you.
I just want to make a note. I know this resident has been maintaining this lot and keeping up with it. I don't have a problem with this, but just in terms of when they get this land for the side, because we had one of these last council meeting too, the same kind of scenario. They're planning on like blacktopping it and like, or is that what they're doing?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Okay.
For them here.
I know I met with someone else that had the same similar thing and they
Yes.
talked about that. So I just want to
That
make
is the
sure
plan,
that, like,
and
boosting it up.
all of these particular side lot sales are deed restricted in terms of what they can actually do with the lot.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item.
G is a private sale and redevelopment to develop a four-story, approximately 24-unit apartment building with parking.
I'm sorry, which one? Oh, we're on 7R2G, right?
Yes.
Yeah, sponsor. I'm sorry.
Is there a second? I'll second.
H is a private sale and redevelopment to create a side yard for the adjacent occupied home.
Is similar?
Yes, yeah. So, a quick question. I was looking at the documents, which first of all, thank you so much, Mr. Hamilton, for the information. Definitely amazing. I like that. However, the property that is adjacent to, is somebody occupying it? Because on the opposite side, there is another vacant home, 2 vacant homes, actually.
So, about a year and a half ago,
Please state your name and position for the record.
Keith Hamilton, Senior Manager of Property Management. About a year and a half ago, there was a major fire at that structure. I think it's 426 South 9th Street. That fire caused damage to Mr. Isram's, he just walked out, property, which is 424. He is in the process of reconstructing 424, and in his reconstruction of his property, he's going to add that lot, the undersized lot, as a side yard. Now, the property that was fire damaged, I don't have full information in terms of what's the status of that property, but that's something that we can look into.
Got it, okay. And this, Isaac is the resident, he's planning on living here?
Yes, he lives at the site, or I don't know if he's staying there currently, but he's in the process of having it rehabilitated because of the fire damage.
Correct. Okay, I'd like to sponsor this.
Is there not a second?
Second.
Madam President, if I may, I see that this lot is 2,050 square feet. It's more or less, if you come to the city, to the zoning board or the planning board, they may grant you permission to build in this lot because it approximates the construction size for a two-family, 2,500 square feet.
Which one are you referring to, Councilman? I'm sorry.
2H.
The lot size is
2,050.
2,050, which the buildable lot is 2,500 square feet.
Yeah, but if they come to, sometimes they come to the zoning board or the planning board and they get some remedies.
It's true.
You indicated that they are deed restricted.
Yes.
So what kind of restriction you have in
So the deed restrictions details that they will not be able to sell the lot for a period of years, as well as what they specify in their plan to us in terms of their original plan. We itemize that in terms of this is what they have to do with this particular lot. So it says it in the RDA that they are only allowed to utilize this lot as a side yard, which includes blacktopping, making it, fencing it off, and making it part of their property.
And the other thing is, the other one you sold for $7 a square foot. This one you're selling for $4 a square foot.
So,
Why?
which other one, sir?
The previous one. I know, $4, that's okay.
I was about to say it's $4, yeah.
So we are kind of trying to be consistent in terms of allowing individuals who want to make side yards?
That's fine.
Okay.
I just want to say one more comment. I just want to commend the administration for these items. It is nice to see people who live on these blocks, who have abandoned property or land next to them, buy them. That is really great. That shows really good progress for our city, because we should be allowing residents and working with residents, everyday average residents, to purchase abandoned and empty lots next door to them. So I just want to commend you guys on this work, and looking forward to seeing lots more. Thank you.
I is a private sale and redevelopment to develop 4 two-family residential homes.
Sponsored by Councilman I'll second.
I have a comment.
Yes, please go ahead.
I just want to say, this is Jared Jamar, James Gist Company, and I want to commend him because he actually does build when he gets the properties. He's a local minority developer, and as soon as he gets the lots, he goes to work and he builds them, and he's attacking the numbered streets, which is very important because if you know the West Ward, you know the numbered streets, we have a lot of issues with abandonment and blight. So I want to commend you, James, and I just wish that you were getting 10 properties instead of 4.
Well, that too can happen. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
To J is a professional services contract for business development, banking, and budgeting.
I'd like to sponsor.
Second.
This is a wonderful program for our students.
4A is a stipulation of settlements for tax appeals.
Madam President, before we move on.
Yes.
This one, the explanation says the grant award must be 80% obligated by June 30th. The question is, was the money obligated by June 30th?
I'm going to presume, only because I went to their graduation, and this has been one of my pet organizations. It's
No, I totally agree with.
so I'm going to presume that
Totally agree.
they have used 100%, not even 80%.
Was it spent already? Was it obligated by June is the question.
I'll find out for you. I'll have an answer. I'll call the director by this afternoon. Next item.
4A is a stipulation of tax appeals, settlement for tax appeals. 4B is a stipulation of settlement for tax appeals. 4C is an NREM foreclosure of 159 properties. 5A is the professional radiological interpretation and consulting services.
Next item.
5B is a contract with subrecipient to increase funds to provide housing assistance and supportive services to persons with HIV/AIDS.
Next item.
5C is an amendment to the grant application acceptance of grant funds for the purchase of breast pumps.
Next item.
5D is the application and acceptance of funds to provide regional public health preparedness. 5E is an application and acceptance of grant funds to provide community outreach educational services.
Next item.
We will discuss 6A, B, C, and D with Corporation Counsel in executive session. 6E is a professional services contract for title searches.
Next item.
8A is a resolution waiving event fees.
Next item.
AD of ours recognizing and commending
Oh, I'm
resolutions.
sorry. I'm a sponsor. Would someone?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Guy.
Which one are we?
Madam President, are we?
Yes.
This prayer night day is.
Yes.
Are we waiving all the fees, or are we waiving the application fees? Because we have an ordinance indicating that we cannot waive some fees.
It's just the event
Yes.
permit fee application.
Yes.
The stage, the Wiener.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear.
No, it includes the wagon.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Next item.
8D of various recognizing and commending, B of various recognizing and commending resolutions. 8C of various expressions of profound sorrow and regret. 9A is an application and acceptance of grant funds for body armor replacement.
Oh, I'll sponsor that.
Second.
On communications, 8A is an ordinance ratifying and authorizing the execution of a lease agreement between University Hospital and the City of Newark for lease of premises commonly known as 140 Bergen Street. This is used for use as an ambulatory care facility. We have a request from the administration that this item be advanced and adopted on first reading.
Any objection? So noted.
D is a ordinance requiring apprenticeship and project labor agreements. Councilman Osborne is the sponsor. Do we have a second?
Councilman Osborne.
Second.
C is would establish a new subsection entitled Love Your Block Mini Grant Program.
Sponsor.
We also have a request on this from administration to advance and adopt on first.
Yes.
Yes.
On the appointments on 8D, we will be deferring Mr. Rouse until we have had an opportunity for the interview. We have sponsors for Mr. Mohammed, and we will advance Brenda Wilson. As you can see, there are 14 speakers for the hearing of citizens. There are several items trying to reach the council as added starters. If I can find my added starter list.
2.
We have, at this point, we have 6 items. The first is from the Department of Economic and Housing Development, the resolution endorsing giving the city support for the Makerhood project. The second is an ordinance granting a tax exemption to the Makerhood Urban Renewal Project.
What is that?
The
What's
next
the address on it?
Makerhood's project, this is the Cooper Scott Mansion property.
Gee, listen, 30 years, huh?
We need to talk about that offline.
30 years.
We do. I'll sponsor that.
Country's going to have a room there.
I know it's in your ward.
I know, but I need more information too. I need to be updated.
Okay.
There was a lot of back and forth.
No, okay. I can Mr. Clerk,
Want to advance that first? Okay. Let's go back to.
Yeah.
So it will be 6F, F, and the other will be G. Okay. Let's see. The next item attempting to get to you is a professional services contract to provide planning consulting services.
Who?
Professional services contract, this is for the Department of Economic and Housing Development, for professional services contract to provide planning consulting services, specifically the preparation of a redevelopment plan for the port industrial area.
Can anyone speak to that?
Once again, good morning, council. This is for the Doremus Avenue project. This contract will be extended. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
The next item is an ordinance which would amend Section 23:5, parking prohibited at all times. This would remove Prospect Road between Prospect Street and Westerly Terminus from the list of projects. This is Councilman Amador's, in his absence. This is the street where a property owner.
Where the fire department is.
Well, this is the street where one of the property owners came to the city and had them added to the list of prohibited parking. But the residents on the street didn't want it, and so this will remove it and put it back to where it was.
My love. But you know, when he and Shirley were in school, we were in Atlanta.
We also are trying to bring to you a ordinance which would eliminate the appeals process for rent control to the municipal council, so that
I sponsored that.
appeals would then go to the court.
Let them go to the court.
That makes sense. One last thing
There is also an EUS contract for operation and management services for the municipal television studio.
The what?
Any comments?
This is the studio at Symphony Hall.
What about it?
It's Symphony Hall.
It's an EUS contract for the vendor to run the Symphony Hall facility.
How much
The They're increasing, the original contract is $197,600. They're adding an additional $85,000 to the contract.
Child. That's a lot.
So, a little bit of an explanation. I think we all support the work they do, but that's a quantum leap. So, Mr. Clerk, if you can ask them.
Yeah, you just need to.
Yeah,
Yeah, he needs to do a presentation.
we need to do that.
And we need to talk about what's going on there,
Madam
too. We
President,
need to
the other day, apparently, there was a press conference going on at the federal building.
Okay.
And Mr. Baraf apparently went there and interrupted Mr. Carpertino press conference. I believe that the mayor doesn't want to be interrupted when he's doing his press conferences, so I don't think that it is proper that the press person of the city goes to where the district attorney is having a press conference and interrupting the conference to supposedly clarify that the individual that was arrested was not the manager as listed in the city webpage, and it was only a temporary employee. But the city webpage indicated that the individual was the manager of the Rotunda Recreation.
May we pause on this? This is a personnel issue. If we can go into an executive session and address this, please.
Yeah, I just, yes, okay. But I want to say one thing on the record, however. I was glad they did, because the public needed to know that an error had been made. And because the first word, so that's all I'm going to say on the record.
And
I'm glad it did, the councilman did bring it up. I was going to do it in motions.
Madam President, Madam President,
We're going to get it in executive session.
Madam
Isn't that what you asked? Yes.
Yeah, I was going to ask that, you know, unfortunately, we all know what happened last week. You know, everything I've seen at least has been through the local press. So I'm hoping that in executive session today, we have an opportunity to talk to the BA and the Corp Counsel about the hiring. And
Absolutely,
and also,
I agree.
I think Councilman's point, it's not intended to be an attack on an individual, but also the conduct of, you know, our staff and employees in certain environments, and the individual in question or whoever it is, you know, it's a communications office, and, you know, we also should discuss that in executive.
Mr. Clerk?
Before we go into executive session, let's do the public speaking portion of this meeting. This is a 30-minute period in which speakers will be given 3 minutes to speak. When you come to the microphone, please state your name and address for the record. You'll see a small timing device on the podium in front of you, which will begin counting down your time when you begin speaking. Please address questions to the chair, not to individual council members. Please look forward, speak into the microphone. We are recording these proceedings, and if you turn away, we may miss part of your statement. Is there anyone present that wishes to speak at this time?
Yes. Manera El-Bumani, citizen of Newark, came to speak on behalf of the voiceless in the community, because as I say, we have no government, we have failed leadership, we have a corrupt enterprise, no other way to describe you, and the goddess and the God of justice will deal with you all one by one. And if it don't apply, let it fly, okay? But to the residents, to the seniors, to the community, to the faith-based organization who are Silent Night, Holy Night, for contracts, for jobs, for handouts, for personal gains, I say shame on you. For the budget hearings, I say to the council members who all lack council participation and community participation here in this chambers, I say it's a travesty, okay? The potholes in these streets are a travesty, okay? I don't know what's going on with the list you got, but you need to get busy on the streets because the potholes. To the councilwoman about the illegal dumping and the code enforcement issues and illegal dumping, kickback, no other way to handle this issue is but a federal investigation. You can't take a criminal to a criminal. End discussion. If you want something done, you better get it done, and you better do it that way. Okay, the water contamination, I want somebody to explain to me, why did we have to have a pediatric coming from another state to educate our community about the lead and the Legionnaire crisis going on in our community? Somebody need to explain to me this. And I also want to know where and what's going on with the health petitioners here in the city of Newark. Because we got a lead crisis and we got a Legionnaire crisis, and y'all sitting there thinking it's this business as usual with y'all. The land bank ordinance needs some amendments. I was able to participate in the hearing that they had, okay? And I'm gonna say to you that selling city-owned properties shouldn't only go to outsiders and definitely shouldn't go to your friends and families. Nepotism in the city stinks as hell in here, okay? We need supportive housing, transitional housing, community-led housing, and we definitely need that task force. We don't need it to be politics as usual with your political appointees in this city.
Thank you.
There's more to say, but something needs to be done in the city.
Anyone else appearing? Mr. Clerk? Oh, I'm sorry. Are you coming to the mic?
I'll be really, really brief. Kevin Stretch Simpson, President, Newark Firefighters Union, 238 Murray Street, Newark, New Jersey. Last time I came before y'all, I gave you my list of issues. And again, I don't expect you to negotiate my contract for me. But I come to these meetings, I get the agendas, and the funny thing to me is every time I'm here, there's another appointee. Every time I'm here, there's another contract for people that are coming from wherever they're coming from. You commend people for buying property, but guess what? Whether it's Airbnb, whether they have one person in the room or they have 5 people in the room, the fire department is going to respond. Plastic bags, whatever. When they burning, the fire department is going to respond. These properties that everybody's buying, guess who's going to respond? The fire department, the firefighters. I work with all of the unions, but I represent my guys. And what I'm saying to you now is I'm a patient person, I'm a fair person. What do I have to do to get the attention of this administration? Do I have to sell drugs in a damn rec center? Is that what I have to do to get the attention of this administration? And I mean no disrespect by saying that, but since 2016, I've been without a contract. My guys been without a contract. Healthcare is going up. Everything is rising. The fire department, the firefighters are, I consider, the stepchild of this administration. I am, and this don't even mean nothing, but I'm gonna say it because it means something to me and it means something to my mother. First ever African-American president of the Newark Firefighters Union. Hundreds of years in existence. As a black man in this city with a mostly black council and a black mayor, I'm starting to feel a little disrespected as a man, as a black man, because I can't get a seat, I can't get attention, and I know what's going to happen once I'm done here. My phone is going to ring and everybody's, not you guys, but the directors in the administration, they're going to be calling and want to talk to me, but you know what? I've had it up to here with being ignored and disrespected by this administration. I've had it up to here, and my patience is getting really, really low. I'm patient, I'm fair. I've been told you had to take care of Local 21. Okay, you took care of them. I've been told, okay, we had to take care of the budget. The budget is taken care of. Now I'm told somebody else is stepping in front of me in line for negotiations. My patience is, I'm done. What I want my members taken care of, ASAP. ASAP. This is ridiculous. It's beyond ridiculous when I'm going through, dealing with this administration, and seeing, every time I come here, it's more people.
Thank you. Thank you. You just lost me.
Any other speakers?
Anyone else appearing? No one else appearing, Mr. Clerk.
No other speakers? Council to hold to go into executive session.
Roll call for executive session.
Yes.
Yeah. I told him.
Yes.
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 Yes.